Okay, next up we have Krakatoa Resources, ASX code KTA, and they have a market cap of around 17 million. Krakatoa is committed to acquiring and developing high value and critical metals projects. Presenting for the company today is Colin Locke, Executive Chairman. Colin, welcome back. Please take it away.
First up, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the tsunamis of new shareholders that are joining us on the Krakatoa share registry. Welcome to the family. And next slide, please. Speed reading again. So we have two main projects. One being Mount Clare, where we've already delineated 101 million tonne clay-hosted rare earth resource of about 840 ppm trios. Out of that, 25% to 30% are payables that are used for magnet ingredients. And we have King Tamba is the second major project where we've already delineated a 5 million tonne rubidium resource. And rubidium, just by the way, last time I looked, is trading at over $1,000 per kilo. King Tamba is a multi-critical metals project with a plethora of criticals and high-value metals. And we'll spend more time on that as we go. Next slide, please. We can skip that. We've covered that in our last chat. The corporate overview, we've got 434 million shares on issue, market cap of around 17 million, a very competent and cohesive board, and an enterprise value, obviously, of around about 14, just under 15 million. Cash on hand, based on last quarterly's 2.5 mil. Next slide, please. So what we're leading up to here is mainly the King Tamba project, which has recently got a whole lot of new people onto our share registry. This all started when we discovered a 4.3% rock chip earlier in the year, and we found some multiple high-grade other rock chips. So we then made the decision to have a look and see what's underneath them. And what's interesting too for investors about King Tamba, what may be interesting is that it certainly appears that King Tamba was a historic tantalum mine. And from the samples we've taken, it's riddled with lithium, cesium, niobium, tantalum, tin, gallium, rubidium, and it certainly seems to be a pathfinder, historic tantalum mines to lithium. For example, you've got core exploration as a recent example, Wildcat Resources as another recent example, and of course Greenbushes more historically. So these Krakatoa's got a market cap of 17 mil. And Wildcat and CXO, the two companies I've mentioned, have market caps. I believe last time I looked up to 7 or above 700 mil. Next slide, please. So, if we thought, let's do some drilling underneath these high-grade rock chips, and what we intersected was pretty thick pegmatites. So we did a total of 1,800 meters or so across 16 holes, and 13 of the 16 holes intersected pegs, and with pretty consistent intersections. And one of particular, this is down to 70 meters, was up 39 meters in width. So looking pretty interesting. And that's only the drilling we did is only an absolute fraction of this 3 kilometer LCD corridor that we've already delineated via a soil sampling. And some of the samples we've taken have glowed under the UV light. And We're expecting those samples back with proper analysis, hopefully before Christmas, touch wood. Next, please, next slide. So this is a close-up of what we're talking about at King Tamba. The high-grade rock chips were taken from the prospects of MGM, Wilsons and Loader, and you can see there on that dotted line below, it's a fairly consistent, thick pegmatite that's open to the southeast. And those rock chips are, a lot of them were over 2%, up to, a lot of them were over 3%, and the highest one was at Wilson's, which was 4.3. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, what we see, I hope you guys can see this, but this red dotted line provides this 3 kilometre corridor of soil mineralisation, and within that, in that black dotted line, is about a 0.5 to 1.3 kilometre high grade yoke, if you like. And if you can see that dotted green line there in the shape of a smile, that was where we did that last drilling. So we've hardly touched the surface here of this massive system that our main exploration geologist has said that it's got potential for the system's big enough to potentially be of biblical proportions. Next slide, please. Now, Mount Clair, we'll just briefly go over this. Again, we've got good metallurgy on it. It's 101 million tonnes. It's got a bigger exploration target of nearly 500 million tonnes, and it's one of the biggest clay-hosted rare earth projects in Australia. And not only that, it's where it is situated. Unlike our clay-hosted rare earth peers, or most of them, it's not subject. The ground's not subject to intensive farming. They're not growing anything on it. It's like a Martian meadow. Next, please. What's interesting at Mount Clair recently, we've been able to enter an area where we were unable to enter before. This is the Dew area. We cut a road into it, and we sent out our world-class exploration team. And we found widespread pegmatites up there as well, with one particular outcrop of 40 metres wide and a strike greater than 200 metres, kind of dwarfing our exploration geologist. So there's certainly potential for for goodies up there as well. Next, thanks. Mount Clair, to put it in perspective, we've put some neighbours in this map. The likes of deltas up there in the vicinity, Hastings, Kingfisher. You can see them on the slide. It's a lot of them are finding carbonatites, primary carbonatites for the rare earths, and also a whole bunch of lithium with really high market caps compared to Krakatoa. And we've just recently taken about over 1,000 soil and rock chip samples. They're in the lab, and we're waiting on those assays to come back. Next, please. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Colin. Plenty of questions for you, Colin. Let's start with the first one. Obviously, been a huge couple of weeks for the company. What are the next plans at King Tamba following these strong initial results?
Yes, well, I think that's a fairly good question there. What we are doing at the moment is we're contemplating a phase 2 drill campaign, given the fact that we've only just touched the surface, so to speak. We've only just drilled a slither of that high grade of those high grade soil samples. Now, what's important for investors to note as well regarding those soil samples, the exploration team are adamant that they haven't been transported. It's elevated. They're too consistent. And so, these and they are high grade for soils across the board, and for lithium included. They haven't been transported. So, I mean, they've got to come from somewhere, and it's not from the sky. So that's what we're planning to do, potentially.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
And how much larger can this discovery along this strike be?
Well, it's a 3 kilometre corridor, and it's a 1.3 by 500 high grade soil zone. So it's got unimaginable scale, no doubt about it.
Yeah, got you. And you touched on this earlier. What do you think makes historic tantalum mine so prospective for lithium discoveries?
I guess just where there's tantalum, there's usually, or it appears, is usually lithium. I mean, lithium in the past was not something that was deemed to be of any value. So the tantalum was, and they seem to be associated. LCT systems, right? Lithium, cesium, tantalum.
Yep. And correct me if I'm wrong, you only conducted drilling on 20% of the Mount Clara area. When will you commence the next campaign?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. First of all, we'll wait until all those soil and rock chip samples are processed from the lab, and then we'll work out a plan. And
last one here for you, Colin. Can you speak to the significance of the extraction with the rare earths, and why clay-hosted deposits like Mount Clare benefit you?
Well, in general, the good thing about clay-hosted rare earths is that you often don't need to grind. You certainly don't need to blast. You don't have to crush. There's no primary, secondary, tertiary crush. There's no conveyor belts. None of that. So the capex is minute compared to a hard rock system, and the opex is also much lower as well. You don't have the tailings dam issues either, because you process it and then stick it back into where you got it from. So there's a heap of benefits. It's lower grade, but you can push it through hard.
Martin, Colin, many thanks for your time today. Clearly, a huge amount going on for Krakatoa. We were watching the story incredibly closely. It's great to see that a lot more interest has come into the stock over the last few weeks, and we wish you the best for the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. It's a pleasure being here.